Israel is like an impossible startup story. To grow that fast, you need to have, we Jews call it chutzpah, to take risks, to try things and fail. It's like the belief that we can find a way to make it happen. And that's, I think, the mentality that made Israel a thing.
This is a Visegrad 24 series about the Israel-Hamas War.
My name is Stefan Thompson. We're here for another Visegrad 24 podcast on the ground here in Israel, trying to get the stories from the people involved, showing you the realities on the ground, showing you what the people out here are like, what the situation on the ground is like. And my guest today is Shai Reznik from hires.ia.
Yep.
And we're here to talk about the tech ecosystem in Israel, which is a story about Israel right now. It's in the West. It's from a very biased perspective. It's all about how Israel commits genocide in Gaza and how you're basically killing babies. That's an important debate about what's happening in Gaza, what isn't happening in Gaza, and what the realities of the war are. We're forgetting about all the stories about what is happening here and how this one single democracy in the Middle East is becoming a leader in various industries, and that's why Shai is my guest here today. Shai, could you tell me about the Israeli tech scene? Just sort of give us a broad intro about the tech scene.
Basically, the tech scene is very, very wide. A lot of technologies and innovation happens here in Israel. A very vibrant community. I run one of the communities, over 10,000 developers, called JavaScript Israel, which also came from nothing and became this phenomenon because people here, the mentality here is sharing is caring. Like everybody left to share knowledge with each other. Even if they're like friendly competition, people still want to help each other and like bring each other up and stuff like that. So I think that's that's a good way to describe like innovative and friendly and collaborative. That's summarizing. Like
it's a very vibrant scene. It's very active. It's very dynamic. It's very youthful. In many ways, interestingly, it reminds me of the Warsaw scene. In fact, the most time I spent it, there's one similarity that I see between the Poles and the Israelis. Also, a very young startup scene, and the skyline changing. Your skyline's more impressive than ours. Tel Aviv absolutely transformed. The amount of building work going on as you drive into the city, it's a never-ending building site. It doesn't stop. There's towers going up, left, right, and center. What's going on?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of room to build like lines. Build up. I was in Warsaw. I have friends there. I have a chance to speak all over the world on like nerd topics and stuff like that. So I visited Warsaw a couple of times and really loved the community there. And I think what's similar there and here, I think to be to grow that fast and to be that like innovative, you need to have we Jews call it chutzpah, and like daring to take risks and to try things and fail. And I think here in Israel, people have they also have great ideas, and combining with the fact that they have like I don't know how to call it, but wishful thinking or optimism or something like that, and it makes us think that we can do that. Yeah, no, it's like kind of it's not arrogance, but it's kind of like I don't know, like chutzpah. It's
That's the good word.
it's a good
It's a great word.
So it's like the belief that we can find a way to make it happen, and that's, I think, the mentality that made Israel a thing, because Israel is like an impossible startup story.
Yeah,
it's like, against all odds. No matter how much propaganda and like few years before Israel, we went from the most like disastrous event ever in our like history, which was the Holocaust, and we, a few years later, we had a country, which is crazy out of nowhere. And we had like lots of propaganda similar to these days going against us. I, for example, live in a city where the founders of the city bought the land, from the local people with money and developed it into one of like the fourth largest city in Israel, with lots of high-tech scenes and lots of other high-tech stuff and innovation. And people still, call us, you stole land, everything. It's not your land. It's not. And I tell people like, hey, we have we bought
Title deeds.
Yeah.
Title deeds.
Yeah. And people are, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that about Israel. So, so that's like, the mentality of building something from nothing. I think it's you're talking about the like a narrative or like a story of Israel and Israeli. I think the high tech and the innovation is a continuation of the mentality of we can make it happen. We can find a way to have to create the vision that we see in our minds. And I think it's like the startup mentality is like all the way since the beginning.
Is the talent that's being used here in Israel in the tech industry, are you using a lot of local tech talent as in there? So, for example, in Central and Eastern Europe, we have, but partially because of the communist past, there's a very high level of education at the mathematics and engineering and coding levels. So we have a very deep talent pool of tech people, which is because there's a lot of software developers available. In Israel, one of the issues is obviously the population size. You don't have a vast pool of people to pick from. What are the demographics of the tech scene?
Most of the tech scene comes from Israel. We have we have a mandatory service in the army, and lots of the army are like technological units. So people are going through there, learning and becoming better, and also getting that, let's say, hacker mentality, let's say. And the hacker mentality is not someone who hacks, is someone who finds a way to get the job done and self-learn and all that stuff. That's the hacker mentality that we call in the scene. So that's part of the population. We have company that works with, with global teams around the world, also in Europe, in the Ukraine, in Poland, in other places, like the Far East, in India, and such. So it's very collaborative, but I think it happens more in the larger companies, like in the big tech and the small startups. Part of it is you can do much more with a smaller team than you think. Because sometimes you have
I agree with
team, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
You have a big team and you have lots of waste and all that stuff.
A lot of waste.
Right.
Big teams have a lot of waste.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And I think one of the big realizations that I had regarding the situation that we're now in, which is a horrible situation, horrible for us, horrible for the other side, is that I think we as a country came to this situation because we were I was born in a generation where everything we have a country already. So the startup mentality was already, okay, we're a corporate now. We have our salary in the end of the month and everything is cool. You can shoot the shit next to the coffee machine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was an illusion. Because, if you have time after work to watch TV and, reality shows and all that crap, it's wasting time near the coffee machine. While we still have lots of work to do in a lot of different areas here in Israel. So I realized that we're not in the illusion of, we're not a corporate. We're still a startup. We're still need to work until 2 a.m. to figure things out in a small team.
Yeah.
And
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of parallel, the tech scene and the whole situation in the country at large. So
tell me about the impact of the army on entrepreneurs in Israel. I have a thesis. My natural instinct tells me that the fact that you put your young people through 2-3 years of the IDF is one of the reasons you have so many unicorns. I believe there's a firm correlation, but I really want your input on this to confirm whether my theory is correct.
Yeah, so also I will divide it into two. You have like the tech scene or the tech units, which is obvious. Most of the startups or startup founders or successful startup founders coming from there because they have like all the education and training and all that stuff.
Sure.
But a lot of startups coming from other units in the army. I wasn't in a tech unit during the army.
Where were you? What were you doing?
I cannot. But but I think you learn the same mentality. You learn values first of all. That's why it's driving me crazy when people say, "Oh, people compare like the IDF to some I don't know like a bad regime or stuff like that." I was there and I always tell people on Twitter like that they attack me or that you need to be on the ground in order to actually assess and realize you need to speak with the people. You need to be there in order to see the values and see the care and see how much time goes into being a human being and being like, even in the toughest situations. So I think the training, psychological training and like that you get as a side effect while doing an army service is you get values, you get a mentality of like, making finding a solution to a problem in creative ways. So I think that molds the human beings that then go and say, oh, I learned how to code. I can find a way because I found a way how to get out of an impossible situation before. So I can do it with some code. It's not that big of a deal compared to what I had experienced. So I agree with you. I think the fact that there's a mandatory and combining that with values. I think that's the missing part there, right? Because without the values, without being a human being while doing that, without, lifting each other up, without all that, it's not the same thing. It's like, okay, I did some period of time I had to do, and now I'm on my own or something like that. So I think that's the correlation. So you have the tech, obviously the tech scene or the tech units, and you have the other units who get the mentality, which then they learn the code and they're doing their stuff.
But also even the fact that you get young people managing teams. That there is a group obviously that rises in that 2-3 years, and that is managing whether it's a platoon, a company, a battalion, whatever it is, and suddenly you have 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds who have experience running teams of 20, 30, 50, 100 people.
Yeah,
you don't have that in the West, but no one's managing 100 people at age 21 in the West. Right, it's very rare. Because there's no context in which you could possibly manage it.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of added benefit from that is coming from forcing that responsibility on young people.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Yeah. Definitely managing at a young age. You do all the mistakes of management in the army.
So tell me more about the breakdown of the sector of the tech industry as a whole, because a lot of it is from the way that it's presented in the outside world, from the way you look at it from the West. A lot of it is security tech.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of anger on Twitter recently, on X, that
wow.
It's shocking. It's shocking, right?
A lot of anger on X? Who would have believed?
Yeah. The company that's doing some of the comment management and the bot management is a company under Israel. So the
what?
The comment management.
The comment management.
Yeah,
okay.
Interesting though.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of the pro-Palestine crowd has been calling it foul play, saying, "Oh, this is an example of censorship. These trainings are coming for us."
Interesting, because we didn't have the ability to write community notes, for example, in Israel. Up until 2 months ago, we did all the first I think month and a half after October 7th. We didn't have the ability to even correct the fake news that people are spreading. So only when Elon Musk visited Israel and sat down with like, the local, the normal civilians who raise up to the challenge, like I said, the starter mentality, and decided, okay, I'm not going to write a vlog about like, trips or stuff like that. I will turn all my attention to do, to explain what's up and do like, to fight the fake news that, we have a war machine against us spreading like clear lies about what's happening, how people are, treating others and what our motivation is and all that stuff. So only after he met with these people, he said, okay, you're right. We need to have community notes in Israel because, it's not fair, right? People spreading lies and you don't have even the chance to vote on the community note if it's helpful or not.
Yeah.
So, wow. So it's funny that you say that, we control everything where we didn't have it, even the, ability, or people are saying that, right? But I think it's part of the thing, like, no matter what, people will find a way, I think, to say, oh, you Jews control everything. So, you have the advantage. Where it's kind of crazy that, like, all through history, that was the same narrative being, no matter which time
But the funny thing about this narrative is that, especially the Jews control the media one.
Mm-hmm.
It's if they control the media, why is it so wise to get there?
Exactly.
I mean, it really is and it is something. But the worst thing is obviously you then look at the boards of directors of these big US outlets. There's a lot of Jews on the boards of these companies. Mm-hmm. Why the hell are they not actually directing the editorial board to be less biased? You look at the New York Times reporting based on Ministry of Gaza, Ministry of Health of Gaza information saying Israelis bombed the hospital. Next thing you know, there's protests across the Middle East, and Israeli and US consulates and embassies are under threat.
Yeah,
that's like real life repercussions of the New York Times taking a story from Hamas, running with it as their front page cover, and then saying, sorry, we got it wrong.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that's the kind of the great irony is obviously there are a few Jewish board members of the New York Times.
Yeah.
And they clearly didn't control the narrative, did they? Because if they did control the narrative, you'd have a different story.
Yeah, of course. Like 2 days after the war started, or like the brutal attack, I wrote this like Twitter thread where I said clearly, I'm against killing of innocent civilians, no matter where they are.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
But let me share my side of the story, which is not being heard because, again, we're a small community and people already made up their mind about us. So I started sharing it and I got a lot of responses from people from countries or people from like certain backgrounds who already made their mind about us. And only after like 16 comments, replies, and I made sure they're not bots, so I'm talking with like real human beings.
Yeah.
It clicked for them. But it took a lot of peeling the layers, right? Of like, I made up your mind about what you are and who you are, and you should leave this country because it's not yours. It's, you're killing babies. They have they refuse to accept the fact that here in the Middle East, the mentality of the people living around Israel is totally different from the Western values that we grew up. So that guy living in his comfortable life in the States or wherever, having the opportunity to go, afternoon and speak to people and all that stuff, don't have any immediate danger to his life. No one is like bombing themselves next to him in a grocery shop. I always ask the same question. You are with your family in the street, with your, like, you have 2 kids, like I have 2 kids, 2 small children, with your wife. There's a person, a murderer in front of you, holding his child, pointing a gun at you, and he's going to kill all of your family. Like, that's the decision. So either you kill him, like, and I would take this challenge to anyone all over the world. This is an impossible choice to make. You're not a baby killer. You don't want to kill his child because he's innocent, he didn't do anything. But the fact, that a person is willing, like, I'm like there, I'm not like protecting myself with my children. I'm there walking in the street, minding my own business. He went there purposely, took his child because he believed deep in his heart that they both will go to heaven.
Yes.
And we don't believe that. We believe that if we do that, we will go to hell because we sacrifice our children. But they actually believe it's absurd. So this is the mentality surrounding Israel. And people have a hard time. They think that we are brainwashed. No. Read what they are writing. Read the manifest of Hamas. Read all that stuff and understand that we are in an impossible morals. We have moral values, but we're not dealing with the same moral values on the other side. And that's what I think people are not getting in the story, and they're not getting our side of the story. And I think that lead to people saying, yeah, Israel should be wiped out.
But I'll tell you something incredible. The shootings and the bombings in Europe happened.
Mm-hmm.
We had 7/7 in London, we had the Madrid,
Right.
and we had the shootings in Molenbeek, we had the Bataclan, we had the Nice truck attack, we had the Berlin Christmas market attack. We've had attacks, we've had killings, we've had beheadings of French school teachers. Samuel Paty, his head was chopped off, he was macheted off, and nothing.
It's not
there,
that
there wasn't a sense of wake up in the West of, okay, there is clearly an issue of values from migrants from the Muslim world and their assimilation into Western society. They do not become liberal Democrats because we bring them to Europe. Since then, the migration rate to Europe has increased, if anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have boatloads of migrants coming through Lampedusa. We have boatloads of migrants coming through the Strait of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. We have people crossing through Turkey and through Aden every single day, streaming into Europe. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't enough to have those murders. I've spent some time in the Middle East. I've read the Quran. I've always been interested in the Arab world, and actually I quite like the Arab world. There's a lot of me that likes. I enjoy the mint tea houses of Morocco and the smoking of shisha and Arab hospitality. And there's a lot of great things about Arab culture that I genuinely profoundly enjoy and like, especially in non-tourist areas. Mm-hmm. But also I have an understanding that the Muslim world looks at death, looks at martyrdom, looks at Israel and the West as enemies. I mean, you see the Houthis in Yemen today. Their slogan is death to America. Literally, God is great. Death to America. Death to Israel. Curse the Jews. Yeah. You can't make that up.
But it's funny because if all Muslims were that extreme, we would be wiped off already. Right?
Of course.
So I don't think it's like all Muslim world, but
absolutely not.
But you have a certain movement. Muslim Brotherhood, for example, which and combine that with the Iran, which is a different, it's the same goal but different path together.
Yeah.
And they have patience, and they have like a 100-year plan. We in the West combine that with the West of losing meaning in life, losing religion, losing a higher goal,
and that being very much represented by the birth rates of the West. I think there's no clearer example of a society feeling helpless and lost and hopeless than lack of children. You don't have that in Israel.
Well,
very interesting.
We don't have. I agree, but we don't have it because of the religious people living here.
It's not just the religion.
It's not just,
but secular Israelis have a much higher birth rate than the West.
Yes.
Not counting the Haredim Jews.
Yes, but
you
not
still
the-
have a higher.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not 6 children, but
It's not
it's
12. Like, I take the. But yeah, I agree, and I think it's part of like, it's the same cycle. You get like better quality life, and then you have like, you want to do more stuff and achieve more stuff as a human being. So you have less time, to raise a bigger family, and I think that's part of the waves that the world works in, which is the same thing. Like you said, like you have bombings in Europe and all that stuff, and people are very like, upset in the week after, and then another news coming. That's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Like, it's what's on the news today. I forgot like what happened last week already, until a major thing happened. We had it on October 7th. Like, we normalized rockets firing at. I normalized the fact that I need to get my baby child, okay, and run to the staircase in 3 a.m. randomly for years. I normalized that. You see how insane it is?
Insane.
To preserve my quality of life, of my, high-tech scene and all that stuff, which is crazy. And I don't think people realize how much big of a change it changed the course of life for lots of Israel, like most of Israel, from I'm going to achieve self-achievement, self-fulfillment, and all that stuff, like achieve stuff in the world, of nope. Now everybody is like, we're still in a startup. We're still like, we need to solve it together. You have like most of the company programmers leaving their computers, going and volunteering to the army to protect, because it was a big thing. Because we realized nobody is safe and we're not speaking the same language. We thought, okay, we had a plan to release like more and more like people coming to work in Israel from Gaza, because we thought mistakenly that Hamas is like settling down, and it's like, okay, Israel could be a thing, we recognize this, or that's what I thought Hamas thinks.
Yeah.
But obviously we were like, slipping, and I think that's what's happening in the West. People are slipping on a group who is more determined and have a 100-year plan. Just my only message, and that's what I started doing since October 7th, is study. Just study. Study history. Study the history of the Muslim Brotherhood ever since the 1926 and upwards, and like the agenda and how it led to the establishment of Hamas. 60 years later, or like starting from a charity. Yes, starting from a charity organization. It's the same happening.
It's very interesting that the Muslim world usually does start. It activates.
It's the extreme Muslim world.
Yes,
That
and
thing.
it activates through social activity and through social organization.
Yeah. And so I think most of the migrants that are coming they're coming from a different mentality, obviously. Some of them will, integrate, and some of them will just live their lives, and some of them will get the extreme, education coming from, deliberate institutions that are set up in. With a reporter called Shai Reznik here in Israel, who did amazing job infiltrating as like, an undercover journalist, playing a role, speaking fluid Arabic, and exposing all that stuff in a series of short movies that shows behind the scenes all the institutions that are basically setting up the path of taking over Europe from the inside using democratic tools.
Maybe a hopeful message for the future. something. No, because I think there is a lot of hope.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of hope. I'm also obviously we backed off track from the tech scene and from the incredible wealth creation. At the end of the day, but what is the tech scene and what is the startup scene? It's the creation of companies, it's the creation of wealth, it's the creation of a better society.
Yeah.
And that's something that you guys and I want to look at Israel. A lot of conservatives, when they look at Israel, they see what would they like to have, or they'd like to have the militarized state, they'd like to have the IDF, the compulsory service, they'd like to have the high birth rates, they'd like to have the strong borders. I look at Israel and I see I would also like that tech scene, and that VC scene and that startup scene and that energy. So maybe on a sort of an ending note, Shai, maybe kind of where do you see the tech scene going? What do you see the next sort of few decades for Israel?
Yeah, so just a small point about the
compulsory military service.
Yeah, military service. But we were on a path of decreasing that, and because we thought, okay, we have more technology, it's less people. People don't really, normal people don't really like to go and, do military service. We have no choice.
Yeah.
If we won't do that, we won't be here. We'll all die. All our families will die. So we don't have that choice. Having said that, it's hard to see, the hopeful thing out of an impossible situation where we have, years and years planned to, a planned move from all of us, all of the sides to destroy Israel. But we've been here before. Managed to get out, and I think the same mentality that creating wealth, I see it not as the money that it isn't worth anything. It's not about the money. It's not about making money. When you're young, you think like that. You're like, you see all the flashy stuff. Money isn't a thing. Once you realize that once you create it, you create jobs for people.
Yeah.
You create better quality of life. People get better education. People can travel the world and meet other people and connect. That's the real value behind creating a successful, high-tech scene, spreading and people all over the world, when they actually meet Israelis and from conferences and other stuff, like people from the high-tech scene, you meet like the real people. We have benefits, we have downsides, like any other culture, but you actually meet and people get a different perspective. So I think the hopeful message here is that I believe that I really believe in karma, and I believe that if your intention is good and combining, the intention with the innovation mentality that we have here, I think we'll find a solution. That's, people are very depressed now because we had a disaster, but people are still hopeful that we're able to change a lot of stuff that need change is in Israel in order to get us to a better future. And really hopeful that we could fight these evil extreme forces that are happening, educating our neighbors to hate, and change that, just like it happened over years in Germany and in Japan after World War II. I'm really hopeful that we'll able to make it happen, because then we could actually live. And I met Palestinians face to face and talked with them, and most of them, really not the extreme people who are fighting, they are good people. They have families. They want to protect their children, just like we want to protect our children. They want to live in peace. We're cousins, basically. We have the same bloodlines, most of us, but it's these ideologies and hateful education that leads us to the same path, the same loop, and stuff like that. So Israel won't back down. We'll never, give up our place in the world, but we'll never, forget our values or leave our values, and we'll, fight to make this region a peaceful one, just like, we have in other parts of the world that used to have lots of wars. And this is hopefully, the hopeful message that I see as a vision to the future.
Shai, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.